Hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Green for the Whinypaluza podcast, and I am very excited today because I get to talk to Dr. Teri Baydar. Dr. Teri, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. Very happy to be here.
I'm very happy that you're here, and I want to tell you a little bit about this fabulous lady. She is a renowned leadership coach and CEO whisperer. She earned her MBA from Hult International Business School with accrued training in authentic leadership, managing complexities, and behavioral economics. She already sounds super important to me. Between writing, coaching, and teaching meditation, Dr. Teri devotes herself to Love Conscious Human, a one-of-a-kind educational platform for evolving humans. Love Conscious Human was created to support those ready to embody love consciousness and participate in crowdsourcing a better future. Well, that sounds amazing to me. We all want love consciousness and a better future, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
actually we do.
we do. That's how we all want to live our lives. And I really want to ask you what inspired you to pursue a career in this field? What led you here?
Um, Depends on how far back you want me to go. I think let's just go back to I think a pivotal point in my early 20s. I'm high intuitive, clairvoyant, born that way, didn't understand it. And then I was recruited to work with what they call an unacknowledged special access project, working behind the lines for the French government. I was living in France at the time.
Nice.
And we were working on understanding the unconscious mind, the power of suggestion, for the sake of social engineering, for better or for worse. They wanted to understand in order how do we influence certain populations to make certain choices,
Mm-hmm.
and live their lives in certain ways that they felt would be beneficial for society. Whatever judgment you have on that, but that's what we're doing all the time behind the lines. This is before we called it social engineering, before we had psychological marketing, all that kind of stuff.
So this has been going on, and we don't know that this is going on. It's just part of our world. And I think that you have identified concepts that I know nothing about. So I have lots of questions. And I know you talk about love consciousness and war consciousness. And obviously we want to lean towards love. So can you explain these two concepts and explain how we can move more towards the love side?
Absolutely. So moving from war consciousness to love consciousness is really what I do in my leadership coaching practice. That's fundamental transformational shift from the inside out.
Yeah.
War consciousness is the mindset and the point of view that you and I are separate. Somebody wins, somebody loses. Somebody's right, somebody's wrong. Somebody's up, somebody's down. This duality that we have about everything and everyone, and how do I get more and give less? That is all war consciousness. It's a mental, emotional structure around exploitation and extraction of the other for the sake of the petty self.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yes.
And humans are going around doing this to everything and everyone.
That's sad.
Yeah. So it's a part of who we are that we need to look at, shine a light on, and see what we're going to do with it and be at choice. Then there's the other side, this other mindset, perception, point of view that, hey, look, actually, we can elevate our understanding and look at things in a little bit more from a higher point of view and be like, oh, well, look, we're all connected. We just had a pandemic. I breathe out, you breathe in, boom. We're all part of this complex, multivariable, multidimensional unit called planet Earth and humanity. We're all interconnected. We're all interdependent, not codependent or independent. We are interdependent.
I like that.
And we are complementary in this so this is the creative mind set, and this is where we have gratitude and positive emotions, and we can connect. We have connection, we have creation, whereas the war consciousness is destruction and disconnection. In war consciousness, you seek to capture, contain, and control something or someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
In love consciousness, you step back, you try to comprehend, you view it with compassion, you want to be complementary to it, you want to see, how do I fit in, what's actually happening, and open up the multiple possibilities. And so we have these two parts of self, and two basic parts of self. There's other things obviously going on. But the petty self, we kind of know when we're there. It's really a question of, are you willing to just incrementally shift just a tiny bit out of that and move a little bit towards the love consciousness? And it's totally worth it, because the first bonus you get is you feel better about yourself.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you're talking about society, which at large, as a society, we need to do that. And I'm thinking more micro. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we can use it more micro, because I'm thinking about my marriage. I'm thinking about my communications with my kids. And I'm thinking about how I can come across in that war consciousness, and I can come across in the love consciousness.
Absolutely. And it starts with your internal alignment within yourself. Like when your head and your heart are in alignment, when you stop having that cognitive dissonance, when you stop cultivating frustration, when you stop cultivating anger, but you look honestly at what's happening and you make some choices. And it's not like, boom, okay, the book is flip your switch, but it does take a while to re-educate yourself. And that's why I wrote the book, because I can only coach so many people.
Right.
This is actually a natural journey. It is a natural journey for every single person on the planet that is evolving as a human. And so I really pointed out what's happening, how it's happening, and what you can do about it for anybody. I spent 10 years boiling it down, because there's academic books out there, and I'm like, I can barely read them. Okay. Like this is my field, and it's like snore fest. Like, I'm like, yeah, I get it, dude. You're proving this and that study, and great. And like, okay, great. You're a great reference book here. I can use this to like prove my point. But, and then what? And then what? So like, as we're talking, and you've got all these moms out there, right? Moms are an incredibly powerful force on the planet.
Yes.
Moms are a superpower. Okay. And we're like crowdsourcing moms to reshape their husbands and reshape their children. Why? Because guess what? Who's the executive in the household?
Yes, exactly.
It ain't dad.
They definitely pick up our moods and behaviors and all of that.
Yes. Yeah, moms have this executive function. And when I'm talking about executive function, I'm thinking of it not only like as an executive in a company, but also like what we call it in executive function in like mind. Like it's like you're making all these decisions, you're multitasking, you're seeing what's needed, you're choosing how to show up, what to do, you're looking at the cause and consequence of your actions. You bear the weight of the emotional intelligence of the household.
That is a really excellent way of explaining that. And every mother listening feels very understood right now.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I want to tell you, as a mother, when I come across in the war consciousness, sometimes I'm not aware of why that's happening for me. So, as much as I work on coming across in more of a loving way, sometimes I don't know why that happened. And I think other people would agree with me. Sometimes
Yeah.
we're not aware of why we're acting the way that we're acting.
Of course not. Now,
Yeah.
we have a lot of what I call social and psychological constructs. So, we're programmed to react, and we have narratives that we pick up along the way, most of which are like total BS. Like,
Yes.
it just sort of stuff that we picked up from our childhood, and because when I was 12 and my mom said I was like not doing my homework, and my mom, that's not good enough, Teri. And then I'm like, oh, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And that became a thing, I
Yes.
integrated that into my programming, and for better, for worse. And then I had to debunk that and reprogram it, which is a lot of
Hmm.
what I do and I help people do in the book, is reprogram yourself.
And you're talking about, your book is called Flip Your Switch.
It's called Flip Your Switch: A User's Guide to a Whole New Mind.
There it is, if you're watching.
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. Yeah, so give me 5 stars if you can. It helps get it out there. And your reviews
Absolutely.
is great. So it's like about 52 chapters, one a week for a year. Most of the chapters are just a couple of pages long. They're very, there's a lot of intelligence behind it, a lot of study, but I've really boiled it down into something that you can think about. Just read the pages, maybe come back a couple times if you have to, and then you can just ponder it for a week or so. Look at what I'm saying, look at how it affects your life, look at what you might change. So the first part of the book is the basics of mind. So I'm throwing out psychology. Psychology is great, but not for everyday life. It's clinical. It's about a pathology. And I go from the point that you're not broken. So if you're not broken, you don't need to be fixed, but it's really great to understand your mental emotional landscape so that you can take control of it and make choices on what you want it to be, just like you would your garden.
Hmm.
If you want to pull some weeds or pull out a whole bush, go. But make the choice and do it. But in order to do that, you need to understand, okay, where's the soil? What have I got planted here? You need to identify all the parts. So that's the first of 3 parts of the book, is called The Basics of Mind. And it really reshapes how we think about it in a more simplified and practical way.
I love
Okay.
that.
The second part is like where you do the work to shift. That's the transformational part. And that's lots of little bits and pieces, things that you can do incrementally for yourself, to grow yourself, to try some things, to learn. And again, it's these small steps. And, we have to look at all the narratives that you have, all the stuff that it's decades old. You can't just wipe it. You can't reboot it and just wipe it, your hard drive. That's not going to work. You have to patch, reprogram, I call it. Just take a little piece of the code, not working this part.
Yeah.
Let's put it to the side. What could I put in there instead that would work? And so there's lots of little tools in there. And it's not formulaic per se. It's really quite open. And the reason I did this is because I've written the book in order to plug into your natural evolutionary drive as a human. We all want to do better. We all want to be better. We all want to feel better. And so we have a natural, like the tree in my backyard doesn't want to stop growing.
Right.
Okay. It might just grow slowly and surely, but it doesn't want to stop. So it has an evolutionary drive. Every living thing has this. And as humans, if we manage our mental emotional landscape well, and start to shift into the love consciousness, what happens is synchronicity kicks in. Synchronicity and will come in, and suddenly it's like the universe is like giving you these gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, and synchronicity, you know, that's like you were just thinking about somebody, boom, they call you, you know, like all of this is happening. It's natural. And so what I've done is I've taken the normal personal development stuff and I've moved it into the consciousness field where you can develop yourself, and then the universe starts to respond to you. You start to have this relationship, this slow growing relationship. You're just you're having a day, and then you're like maybe you're working on yourself, and you've done a little bit of this patch reprogramming, and then you're sort of like having a frictional time. You're frustrated or something, and you're just on, and then a bus goes by. And on the bus, there's like an ad, and the ad says something that just boom, speaks to you, elevates you, whatever. That's actually like synchronicity. That is like this interwovenness that we have to recognize around the love consciousness and the connectedness of all things, so that we can be full. If you're constantly trying to separate yourself from life, you're going to be lonely.
Oh.
You're going to be sick because you're disconnected from life. Life force isn't going to support you if you're working so hard to disconnect yourself from everything. And so anyway, that's part 2. And part 3 is what I call the emergence of the daemon. The daemon is an ancient Greek term that really refers to your higher self, your intuitive self, that space of knowing beyond logic.
I am developing questions based on all this wonderful information. I'm soaking it all in. I didn't realize what say it for me.
Synchronicity.
Realize what synchronicity is in my life, because that happens to me all the time and I didn't have a label for it. That's number 1. Number 2, you said something so profound. I think this is something that we hear a lot from people, is that they feel broken. And, that makes me want to cry when I hear that from people, because you said no one is broken. So can we talk about that for a moment? Because I think that there's people listening who don't believe that.
Yeah. So again, the very idea that you're broken is war consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
How could you be broken? No, you're individual. Even if you're neurotic, that doesn't mean you're broken.
Yep.
Right?
True.
I mean, I thought I was broken because when I was 12, up until the age of 12, all my dreams were basically precog. And then I was playing with kids and they were like, oh, dreams are weird. And I'm like, no, they're not. They just tell you what's going to happen before it happens. And then it was, oh, you're weird, because that's not what dreams do. And then suddenly I thought I was broken.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's how it happens. And that's why I say, like, most of the stuff we pick up in our mental, emotional programming is BS.
Yes.
That's
yes.
BS. I was never broken. I was maybe neurodiverse, but I wasn't broken. You look at profiles like Elon Musk, like he would be considered broken in many ways because he's very neurodiverse. But look what he's doing. Like, for better or for worse, he's incredibly successful.
Right.
Whether you like him or not, who cares? And so I think we really need to look at the idea of who we are, and the multi-dimensional aspect of like so many human beings. If nobody on planet Earth has exactly the same DNA, how can we say one is right and another is wrong? That's just ridiculous.
Well, and I think that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think that you are talking about something so important about us all being very unique and different, which I think is important. And I'm thinking about the woman who tells me that she was abused as a child and she feels broken. Can you speak on that to help shift her perspective?
Mhm.
If one of those lovely women are listening right now.
Absolutely, because 6 out of 10 women have been sexually abused in some way, including myself.
Terrible.
Including myself, I know. So it has nothing to do with you. See, the whole thing about, and this happens to women so much, and it's again in the social constructs. Why would we be emotionally, mentally, or otherwise responsible for something that was done to us? It's like I drop my coffee cup and I'm like blaming my neighbor. Why? Like, would I just run? If I drop my coffee, I'm gonna run across the street and be like, "Why did you make me drop? Like I have coffee all over the floor. Come over here and clean it up. This is your fault." So the problem there is that we have been trained to self-blame.
Yes, we have.
Okay. So there's actually a chapter in the book. There's several chapters that would actually speak to this. One is the anatomy of hate and the anatomy of love, like how it works in our minds, like in our society a little bit. And then stop blaming, start claiming. And with that, that's a very touchy thing because you have to stop blaming yourself. Okay. So men will blame, more likely to blame somebody on the outside so that they don't have to face it. But the same thing is happening for a woman. They'll just blame themselves and suppress themselves and their evolution and their elevation and their growth in order to sort of stay safe. It's a weird, weird thing. Just like, why would a guy who's, had something bad done to him always blame out there? Like blame society. And then we're really good at blaming and judging, like let's blame the government about what's happening in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a part? Yes, I'm probably 20, 30%. Yeah, but most of my life is like 70% my responsibility. And so it's not about judging and blaming. It's about claiming what's there, cleaning it up, kind of back to the garden metaphor. Like, guess what? It's your garden for better or for worse. Hey, why don't you make it beautiful? So let's do something about it. And I'm not saying you don't get therapy. I've done that. Absolutely. I'm not saying you don't reach out to your doctors and maybe you have to be on medication for a while. I've personally done that to get through what I needed to get through. But then it's a crutch. It's like when I had surgery on my leg, I had crutches. And then I healed, and then I don't need the crutches anymore. So it's how do you work through that with support, right? And all disclaimers, I'm not a medical doctor. I have a doctorate in divinity and metaphysics. So what we're talking about is consciousness and where do you want to go with it? And I think a lot of women, and I've noticed this when I'm doing these female podcasts, for mostly female audiences, there's an idea that love consciousness is all like woo woo, like, oh, well, I have to be soft and let people walk all over me.
Mm-mm.
No. Because you love yourself just as much as you love someone else. That is love consciousness. Sacrificing your needs and your best interest is war consciousness against the self, against yourself, against your best interest. So it's really an idea of understanding. If you're in that destructive mode, if you're being destructive, you're in war consciousness probably.
That's a good way for us to label it and identify it and start to shift ourselves. I like those concepts. It's going to help me a lot. And I think it's going to help a lot of people listening. And you also said something really important. You said that when we're disconnected, that is really not good for us. You said that when we're connected, that is what it's all about. And I think that you hit on something so important, and that the more connected that we feel to people, the better we feel. So what steps do you feel like we can take to make sure that we're connected?
Find tribe.
I like that.
Yeah.
Find our tribe.
Yeah. I have a women's group of intimate circle. We meet, we try to meet once a month. It doesn't usually happen, but these are like real women. We've created a sacred place. We see each other. It's the same small group of women. They're like, we're like best friends. I brought them together from different aspects of my life. And then, the bond just keeps growing, and we have everything from mid-20s to early 70s.
And you said something so important. You made this happen.
Yes.
So I think that instead of waiting to find it or look for it, sometimes we can make it happen.
Yeah, I think there's a lot where we waste a lot of time going outside of ourselves, trying to find some kind of match, when you need to look inside and go, what do I need? What does that look like? How do I create it? And where do I start? And there's a chapter in the book, Small is Great. Like, if you've got 3 people in your life that you can bring together on a regular basis, that you can form a trusting circle where everybody gets to talk, everybody gets to share, nobody's dominating. We do a pass the stick thing, so nobody gets to talk as long as someone's holding the stick. They're the talker.
That's wonderful. That is awesome. Well, I love that you created that. And I know you've helped so many people. Would you mind sharing a success story with us of someone that you've helped along the way? Because there's probably a ton of people.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that this changes people. I mean, let's look at my male executives for starters. So I think this will resonate with your audience. One of the great things that happens when men come to, like, I have executives, right? And they come to me and it's all about, like, how can they be a better leader? And I start to redirect it back to being a whole person, and then shifting the consciousness from this duality to this unity idea. And when that happens, they start, and some of the exercises, I have them use their family first. So it's a safer environment for them to change. And so, we'll have stories where, dads that didn't get along with their sons, that changes. I get a lot of feedback from my executives who say, my wife doesn't want me to stop working with you. Because apparently I'm so much better with her,
That's
and
wonderful.
yeah, so there's like that whole emotional side where they start to be more whole people, and less calculating, because the whole war thing is calculating and manipulating. And unfortunately, business has a lot of that in it. And when you shift from war consciousness to love consciousness, that changes. It's not that there's no transaction. The transaction continues to exist. So does profit. I mean, a good transaction, a good business is solving problems, creating value, and therefore people give you money for that. So the fundamental thing is still the same. It's just a shift of the intention behind it. And who are you being while you're being this business person? And so again, and then relationships change. And now there is one story which I like to tell, and it's about a female CEO, absolutely young, brilliant, MIT, Harvard data analyst, and architect, starting her own company, running her own company with a bunch of other like super smart nerds. I mean, like I don't know, like how many, like, you know, if they were to like stack it, you know, it would be like incredible, the IQs and stuff in there anyway. And so being young, you know, being really young, she's like in her 20s and she's got to go pitch to all these old white guys who are like 50s and on the board of a company. Like, are we going to hire this, you know, data person? And that's all they get, you know, and like, okay, she's like up against a whole bunch of other people. And so she's going in, and the fear and the sense of insecurity and all of that. But when she shifted into this holistic, love conscious mindset, where she started to just know that she was worth it, that it wasn't about whether or not they liked her, it was whether or not she wanted to work with them, whether or not their problem was something that she wanted to tackle, and understanding, okay, so then how do I show up, asking not do they like me, but do I like them?
Mm,
And
very empowering.
yes, and because from the love consciousness, she loved herself enough to not come from a place of lack. She came from a place of fullness, and that just took her to, and of course they loved her, and of course she got the job, and she just went into it as like, well, this is just practice, I'll see, you know. And she was so confident and light, and then she was also really generous. I remember she told me a little bit about how, because she's wicked smart, and so they posed the problem, and she just goes to the whiteboard and she starts architecturally designing the data of what they would need to do, you know, like freehand. And they were like, oh my God, we just paid somebody $30,000 to do just that. How did you know?
Wow. Wow.
And they were like, are you sure? And then they're like asking, and then the guy, the finance, the CFO asks the CTO, did you give her that document? Did you cheat? Like, that's not fair. And he's like, no, I didn't do anything. And then the CFO, you know, again, that like, he's like, I don't know, is she on the spectrum? Right?
Because that's a bad thing.
Well, it's like the judginess of it, right?
Very, very judgy.
Like,
Yes.
what? And that's war consciousness.
Yes.
You know, she just gave everything. She just saw you, your problem, solved your problem, generously gave it to you off the cuff. Yes, she is that smart. And now you're going to judge her and label her. And so it's like, it's just like this interesting, and they gave her the job, and it lasted quite a while. So I think what's happening is you just have to be that person who, you know, you bring it in. I also have, like, I talk a lot in the book about mind your own business, meaning stick to yourself. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Grow yourself, elevate yourself, figure out yourself. Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What did you come here to do? How are you going to shift into love consciousness so that you can be happy, have great relationships, and be successful on your terms? Like, don't try to reach success that somebody else is like dropping in your lap. Who cares?
Absolutely. That's a wonderful story. And my husband has a few companies, and I'm like in my head, I'm envisioning you talking to him and his people. That is what I'm sitting here envisioning right now. So I'm going to have him listen to this one. That's for sure. So, what is your vision for the future of humanity? What do you envision for us?
Well, we are entering into a big shift. We're already in it. And the reason I wrote the book also is to help people get there. Okay, because we are at a point where we need to do better now. There are whole industries screaming to be born on the business front. And we have the incumbents who want to keep everything the same. They are a force of resistance. They're creating these glass ceilings economically and on so many different, fronts politically. They want to keep things the same because they are afraid and they feel like they're cashing in and they don't want that to stop. But we need to change. We need to change, and we're going to change for better or for worse. I'd rather do it now and so avoid some of the really bad stuff. Like, it's sort of like if I know if I have a cold or something, I start taking vitamin C now. Why would I wait until my whole immune system is gone and I have to go to the hospital, right?
Right.
Or something. Like, it just makes sense. It's not very complicated to understand. Now, those industries that are screaming to be born, and I work with some of these social entrepreneurs, are everything around regeneration. So I want you to think about regenerative agriculture, regenerative medicine, and we have circular economies. Circular economies are, and a lot of European, of course, countries are already doing stuff like that, where you have an appliance and a dishwasher. And after so many years, the dishwasher is old and they come and they take it back, give you a new one. And the old one goes back and it snaps apart because it was already designed that way. It snaps apart and the plastic parts go into other plastic parts and the metal parts go into other metal parts. So they're recuperating their actual, what they've already put into it. They're getting back the raw materials that they've put out. So that they don't have to go buy new. The recycling is already integrated into their process.
Yeah.
In construction, we have passive homes where you would cut just by the orientation of the sun, how you build the house, certain kinds of windows and walls and air circulation, and certain kinds of roofing. It costs about 15% more to build a passive home than traditional construction, but your bills, even before you put a solar panel on top, are 90% less.
Wow. Heading in a good direction.
And
That sounds
all of this is
wonderful.
happening. All of this is happening. It's just a question of shifting. Like, the number one thing holding us back are our minds, our consciousness, because we're living in the war consciousness. Okay. So, and then we have that's regenerative manufacturing, regenerative agriculture, regenerative medicine, which is around like functional medicine, where instead of treating the symptoms, we go upriver to look at the cause.
I
And
love
try to
that.
treat the cause rather than just the suppressing the symptoms.
Yes.
I've done that personally in my life. There's so much to be done, and a lot of very simple things that we can do. There's also like minimalist movement where we don't need so much stuff. Like,
Right.
there's a chapter in the book, Enough with the Stuff.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
How much stuff do you need? And this over identification with what we have instead of who we are. Like, be somebody, forget about having stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
As I shop for Hanukkah presents for my children. So I can't let you go without asking you about the celestial spirit, because I'm all about that stuff. So I want us to be connected to that. I want us to be connected to our conscious brain, our physical brain, our celestial brain. So how can we make sure that we're connecting to all of that?
I'm going to say, I'm going to be cheesy and I'm going to say, read the book.
Yes, you can say that.
Because actually, this is a path towards the emergence of your daemon, because that's where the knowing comes from. That's where we are. That's where your potential is. That's how you get in contact with the specific calling that you have. See, we all have the same purpose, which is to be the best version of yourself that you can be in this life. But beyond that, everybody's unique. We're all these different parts to one big system. So you just want to be your puzzle piece. And how do you fit? In order to know that, you have to connect through your daemon. Your daemon is your higher self. It's, I suppose you would call it your spirit mind if you want. And once you've done the work, it will show up. It will naturally emerge. It wants to be. It wants to shine. It wants to show up. It was meant to. We just have, I mean, you have, I have, we all have things that are keeping it down. Our job is just to kind of clear the runway, and it will show up. That's the higher knowing. We all have access to that. And once we start to do that, think of what kind of critical mass we can have in the world if we connect from that place rather than our petty self. What do we get out of this? If we instead connect from our higher self, it's like, oh, look at you. Who are you? What are you doing here? And how's your life? And what does that mean for you? And this is what I'm doing. And this is what my calling is. What's your calling? And how are you going to do that? And can I help you? And will you help me? And just sort of like opening it up. That's when we sort of like I have this vision of planet Earth. And this is why, like, I'm on this podcast tour, which is awesome because it really makes that visual pop for me, which is there's all these little lights, all these little dots of light all over planet Earth. Okay, whether it's a podcast or a client or somebody in love consciousness, all these little lights. And then we're finding ways to connect. And so you start to draw these little golden threads between all these golden lights and then we're starting to build this web, and we're creating this web of light all around the globe through our connectivity. And with that, I call it getting pure positive critical mass. And it's like, that's how we do it. We don't need, like, in left brain thinking 51% of the planet to think like us. All we need to do is to connect and get those golden threads woven around so that the field is full of all of these love conscious light seeds everywhere. And it's like, okay, this is how we do it.
Well, you're making me all emotional, because that is the purpose of this podcast. And I just want to shine light out to everybody. And hopefully this shines some light into some people's lives today. And as you can tell, I could talk to you all day. I just find you so fascinating. I love talking to you. But tell everybody the title of your book again and where they can find you.
So it's Flip Your Switch, A User's Guide to a Whole New Mind, Dr. Teri Baydar. You can find me, so it's on Amazon. You can find me Instagram, Dr. Teri Baydar 1. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Teri Baydar. You can find me loveconscioushuman.com. Have patience, it's still a work in progress. Then you can find me if you're interested in my professional leadership coaching, like if, whether you're an executive or just somebody who wants to know. I'm at whitelilycoaching.com. White lily like the flower, whitelilycoaching.com.
And you are accepting new clients?
I am.
From anywhere?
From anywhere.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I cannot thank you enough for your time and your expertise today.
Likewise, and thank you so much for doing this, shining the light and being the light. You're one of these little hubs of like that light connecting out to other hubs.
And now I'm going to envision that every time I do a podcast. So thank you. This is Rebecca Green, reminding everyone to spend every day laughing, learning, and loving. Thank you for tuning in to the Whinypaluza podcast. If you like what you heard, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. While you are there, leave a review. I love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.